Welcome, everybody. This is our next edition of Money in Politics. I'm Larry Kudlow of CNBC. It's great to be with you. As always, I'm here with former Minnesota Governor Tim Pawlenty, who was president and CEO of the Financial Services Roundtable. Governor, how are you?
Larry, I'm doing well, and our new technology for Money in Politics podcast is going to be great. The sound quality is improving, and now we're face-to-face today, so I can see in the early summer, Larry Kudlow has a tan. He looks like George Hamilton.
Okay. I've been playing tennis and reading outside. Thanks very much. Governor, let me just begin as we did last week. I don't want to spend ages on this, but the Iraq situation is worse, and the jihadist radicals, the ISIS, is taking even more real estate now. What's your thought on this? Because there are oil implications as well as political implications.
There's other implications as well, but if you look at the possibility of ISIS having a run of show from parts of Syria across western Iraq, maybe as far into parts of Baghdad, and then at that, then having the Shias aligned with Iran in southern Iraq and Iran, and having that sectarian conflict is one big problem. It's essentially a religious civil war. But here's the problem for the United States. If you have a group like ISIS standing for the proposition that they're going to annihilate Israel or believe in that as soon as they get the capability to present a direct threat to the United States, they will, I don't think, Larry, we can stand by and just allow that cloud to form. The country and the president don't have the appetite for putting boots on the ground, but I do think we need to take steps try to minimize the probability that ISIS can constitute a direct threat to the interests of the United States.
Senator Rand Paul says that we shouldn't choose sides in Iraq's civil war, and he was very critical of Vice President Dick Cheney's op-ed piece and subsequent interviews, that it's the Obama administration, if they'd had a better exit strategy and done some other things better. Look, I don't think anybody has the appetite for a full-fledged operation in Iraq. And I also think that the Bush administration has to be held accountable for some of the mistakes that they made. I mean, the whole raison d'etre, for example, on weapons of mass destruction never turned out, and democratizing the region never turned out. Don't we have to tread very, very, very cautiously in this? I mean, where is this going to lead? What should our policy be? I don't think anybody knows. There's no clarity.
Well, I think our interest, it starts with defining our interests. Look, Maliki is a sectarian thug. A religious civil war or something akin to it is unfolding in Iraq as we speak. Getting in the middle of that militarily is probably not going to be successful, nor is something we should venture into. But here's our interest, Larry. ISIS, if they're allowed to form the capability to directly threaten our interests in the region or directly threaten an attack on the United States, then we're at the point where we need to intervene. We're not going to put boots on the ground, but there are other options. There are special force options, there are drone options, there are advisor options. Jack Keane, as you and I know, is the leader of the Surge strategy in 2007. He believes, short of boots on the ground, there's some things we can do to at least minimize the prospect of IS presenting a direct threat to the United States.
Jack Keane is a great man.
Yeah.
I know him, and you know him, and he's a great man. But I don't know. I'm sort of nonplussed by all this talk about bombing. We're going to have to put a lot more people on the ground to be able to do bombing. And at the end of the day, if we kill a lot of civilians, they'll hate us even more. There are Sunnis who are, at the moment, because they hate Maliki so much, they're willing to throw in with these radicals.
That's right.
But we could get them back on our side. They once helped us retake Anbar province. In other words, to me, less is more in this sense. And I don't see, look, we have terrorist enclaves around the world. People who are sitting there plotting to get after the United States. Why is this any different?
So maybe it's just like a Yemen strategy.
Yes.
So we don't go in and try to re-engage the war at anything close to what we saw over the last 10 years, but we do say when we see a threat that's material and identifiable, we take it out.
Then we take action.
That's right.
So I think we take them out.
Dang, we agree on something.
We do. We just take them out. I don't need Iraq to tell us yes. It's in the United States' interest. Right. Just like we've taken people out in Yemen and other places. Just take them out.
So we agree. It's a
and
new day. It's a new day on Money in Politics, the podcast.
What about the oil story? What are your guys saying on the Financial Services Roundtable? Because so far oil has done very little, and really the U.S. stock market has dissed the whole story.
Well, if you think about where the oil is in Iraq, the Kurds took back Kirkuk, and they have oil in the north, and they're relatively stable. And I mean relatively, operative word there. In the south of Iraq, where Basra is, the main terminal and transport station, is controlled by the Shias. and of course Maliki is going to control, at least for the foreseeable future, southern Iraq. So where the tension is in western Iraq, the Anbar province in western Iraq, there isn't a lot of oil, and there isn't a lot of oil in Syria. So maybe one of the reasons the markets aren't freaking out yet about this is because the place where the ISIS is going to control isn't the place where the oil is.
And of course, we produce a lot of oil now. America's,
That's also true.
We'll be up to 9-10 million barrels a day in the next couple of years.
You know that North Dakota the other day crossed the 1 million barrel
Right.
a day mark and is now surpassing Libya as an oil producer.
So, that's another reason why I don't think this is really a direct national interest security threat in the Middle East. I just don't.
Until ISIS, let's say, they're now controlling border towns along the border of Jordan. They have made statements and comments that would suggest that if they had the capability, they would attack Israel.
These Israelis will blow them off them. I would. You know what? Let them lob one bomb. Israel will take them out totally.
Well, and I think somebody should take them out when they present a threat. So again, you and I agree on that. Let's call it the Yemen strategy. We'll call it the Yemen strategy.
I like the Israeli strategy. I really do. But anyway, let us move on. We talked for a second about the IRS story, which is they went prime time last evening to talk about this. Darrell Issa and his committee. Is the IRS lying to the committees?
Well, they were not. They may be, but here's the interesting fact. This guy's testimony, who's running the IRS yesterday before Congress, when they asked him, give us your emails, they essentially responded, we have given you our emails. But they didn't voluntarily say at the time, some emails are missing and we had a technical problem. So that was subsequently uncovered. And you would think, Larry, if I said to you, Larry Kudlow, please give me all your emails from November of last year, and during November you had a technical problem, you'd say, hey, Tim, here's all my emails from November, but in the interest of being straight up right out of the gate, I got to tell you I had a technical problem.
Especially if you were investigating.
Yeah, and some of my emails are missing. They didn't do that.
Especially if you're investigating me under
Yes.
oath
Yes.
and pledged to cooperate. So they knew, the IRS knew, at some point in February and March of this year, that these emails were allegedly gone forever. That was the story. So they met with the Treasury Department, and the Treasury Department says to the IRS, you better tell Congress ASAP, and they don't.
That's
Now,
amazing.
that's what got
Stunning.
Paul Ryan so angry.
And
that would get me very angry.
Exactly. You owe somebody the duty of not just disclosure, but I think that the disclosure includes being complete. And they weren't complete. And they're not just held to the standard of an average citizen. This is the IRS. So I think it is it is stunning how nefarious this appears, and somebody better get to the bottom of it.
Is this going to be a political issue in the midterms?
You bet. Yeah, you bet
think
it is.
people are focused on this issue?
Oh, I don't think the whole country's focused on it, but there's a subslice of the country that's focused on it, and a subslice in a close election is could be the hinge vote.
And you think there's any chance of a special prosecutor? Which I wrote a column for National Review a year ago, and I said, get a special prosecutor. And you think there's any chance
Well,
of that?
this president has been extraordinarily reluctant to even consider special prosecutors, but if there was ever an instance in the arc of the Obama administration where the circumstances would warrant it, and there's an internal obvious conflict of interest or some appearance of a cover-up, this would be it, and a special prosecutor should be appointed. But this president has steadfastly refused to appoint them in the past, unfortunately, and it looks like he's going to do it again.
All right. Do you feel Hillary Clinton's pain that she's so broke, no money? Bill too. They have a rough life. They only got $100 million the last few years. You feel her pain on that?
I know you're being facetious, my friend, but this is somebody who's, as part of her book tour, has wildly underperformed and has shown a detachment from reality in her, trying to clutch to the notion that they were quote unquote dead broke or that they didn't have access to resources. I think the smarter course for her should have simply been to say, hey, look, there was a time we didn't have money. We've been blessed since, and now we're trying to address, the grand issues of our time and for our country. But for her to get out and try to pretend that she can relate to,
this is a monumental blunder.
It's
a monumental blunder.
No question.
GOP is going to run ads quoting her on the TV show. It's a monumental blunder. Anyway, I kind of love it because how can you run an inequality, which she probably will, because she's going to be pulled to the left, not only by Obama, but Elizabeth Warren and Mayor de Blasio of New York, the leaders of the Sandinista wing of the Democratic Party. Now that she's saying how poor she is, that's going to run an ad all over the country, and she's going to look like a fool.
Well, she already does. Clearly, out of touch. And so she's going to have to try to dig out of this. I don't know that it's terminal for her campaign yet, but this is clearly a candidate in the waiting who's out of touch.
The former late Duchess of Windsor said you can never be too thin or too rich. Now, I don't think Hillary wants to identify with Wallace Simpson, but my friend Ed Klein has a new book out called Blood Feud, and he chronicles hatred between the Obamas and the Clintons. I mean, real hatred, unbelievable stuff, quotations. But he also says that Hillary is in very bad physical condition, that she's got thrombosis, that she's got blood clots, that she's got heart problems, that her fainting started before it was publicly revealed. And doesn't she have to start answering that? So far, she's been dodging that question. Isn't that going to be an issue?
Well, with all due respect to your friend, that kind of information pre-release in the context of a campaign would be protected and privileged information. So I'm not sure how he or his sources are getting all of that, Larry. And I think we should
great sources inside the Clinton campaign. Great sources.
Well, inside the Clinton campaign.
He does. The Clinton people talk to him, not Hillary, but at lower
I think
levels.
we should tread carefully on kind of incriminating somebody's health until we have better facts. And if she runs, she's going to have to disclose her medical records, and we'll know then. But look, she just traveled the world over the last period of time at a record pace and has been pretty vigorous and robust in her travel. So at least that's one indicator of somebody who can still function physically at a high level.
I don't regard this, I'm not attacking her politically in any sense. I just think this is a serious issue. I know that years ago Dick Cheney had to face this exact issue with his heart problems. I'm just going to make a quote. The unique thing about clotting in the brain is that it could have been transformed into a stroke, said a cardiac specialist with knowledge of Hillary's condition. That's a big story. That may be a bigger story than how rich she is.
Well, we'll see. I think we should wait till you have credible facts on the table. Again, if she's going to run and purport to be the President of the United States and leader of the free world, she's going to have to disclose her medical records, and we can make a judgment then. But I just think it's important, given the sensitivities of people's medical history, medical information, that we not make any judgments yet on these kinds of issues.
Let's take a quick trip to Mississippi, you and me. Big race tonight, okay? The final runoff between State Senator Chris McDaniel, who was challenging U.S. Senator Thad Cochran. McDaniel is the Tea Party candidate. Now, Cochran, first of all, he's been there forever. Second of all, he can barely get around in the campaign. Third of all, he's a pork barreler. Fourth of all, he's an earmarker. And fifth of all, I think McDaniel should whoop him.
Do you have an opinion on this?
What do you say?
Grassroots politics is the politics of passion. Mostly at the grassroots level, people who turn out at caucuses and primaries are the more activist part of the respective parties. That means McDaniel's got the advantage, and he's clearly got the momentum in the race. Given, though, how much national publicity there is about this, there may be more than just the activists that show up and vote, and that might give Cochran some hope, but clearly McDaniel's got the momentum. This is
going to be a huge setback for the so-called Republican establishment. My great friend Haley Barbour leading the charge, another great friend Mitch McConnell holding one of the great fundraisers of all time 10 days ago. Every K Street trade lobbyist in Washington was there. That by itself, to me, disqualifies Cochran. So, is the headline going to be Republican establishment dead, Tea Party alive, and therefore does the GOP move 3 steps to the right, 3 big steps, especially after Eric Cantor's defeat?
Well, I think if Cochran were to lose tonight, Larry, and then the heels of the Cantor defeat, you got to look at the whole record. But clearly, the party is moving not just to the right, but it's moving libertarian. Not even Tea Party.
Free market.
Yeah, yes, and I would say the Tea Party is not the story of today. The story of today is going to be what's happening at the grassroots level is really transcending from Tea Party to libertarian. And when you think libertarian, you don't think of Tad Cochran. And that's not going to be the only part of the party. There's other parts of it, but that's where a lot of the energy is at the grassroots level. And the media is just catching up to that reality. This is really a 2 or 3-year-old story. And the reporting and the results are now catching up to the reality that started to formulate years ago.
Okay, so I'm from McDaniel. I had him on my radio show Saturday. I thought he was very, very good. On the other hand, I'm taking major hits because I'm an immigration reformer, if you could do it right. And that includes border security. But with this catastrophe on the Texas
even you've
border,
had pause now, haven't you?
I do. I mean, this is just a catastrophe. I do blame Obama for a lot of this, for false information, and he's not giving any help to them at all. And these are young children. But here's the bottom line. My pro-growth immigration vision is dead. That may help the GOP in 2014 in some races. It may really damage the GOP in 2016 because they won't reach out, they won't get immigrant votes, and they won't have a big tent. Last 30 seconds.
Depends on who runs. What if the Republican candidate is Marco Rubio, or it's Susana Martinez, or that person's on the ticket?
Do you think any Republican now, after what's happened?
I think you put Susana Martinez or Marco Rubio on the ticket, and I'm not endorsing or suggesting that. I'm just saying that alone probably moves the numbers. But you also have to keep in mind that we have a country where the rule of law matters. And this quote from a Guatemalan mother I read the other day when she said, "Hey, we heard President Obama is giving if you can get into the United States, you get a free ticket." She meant, of course, a bus ticket, and you don't get thrown out. It is attracting, migration to the United States in ways that, isn't working. And this crisis on the border, as you mentioned, is a reflection of that, and has given even you, Larry Kudlow, pause and a potential change of view on some of these issues.
I'll tell you, you're right, but I'm not going to back off. And I still believe, particularly if you have more visas, legal immigrant visas, particularly for the brainiacs, the engineers, and the scientists and the techies. Yeah. These are people that create new businesses, that create massive new jobs, and that's why it's not zero-sum. It's a win-win for all of America. But my pro-growth vision may be crumbling as we speak.
It'll come back, Larry. It'll come back, but we need a different approach to immigration. Obviously, the system's broken. Time doesn't allow today to get into what that might look like, but the status quo isn't sustainable.
Governor Tim Pawlenty, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it very much. I'm Larry Kudlow. This is this week's edition of Money in Politics, and we will be back with our better sound next week.
All right.